Alrighty, welcome back everyone from that break. We just got off with Andrew Tate. Thank you so much for him joining us. I do apologize for the look over Zoom of seeing the ticker for the amount of time that was left. That is my fault. I do not have the pro version, but a little bit of a hiccup there, but hopefully that wasn't too much of a distraction. But let's talk about pro days. There's tons of stuff going on around the country right now. There are so many players that are going into a really big part of their career, which is the time in between the combine and the draft. We know that the combine only means so much, right? There's only so much that you can learn about a kid when he's going through drills in a t-shirt and shorts. It's not necessarily the same thing as live ball, and obviously these pro days not necessarily the same thing either, but you get to see them in their natural environment, in the school that they've been at for hopefully a couple of years, and see them where they're comfortable catching passes from their quarterback or throwing to their receivers. So let's jump in. We had USC, Texas, and Ohio State, and Bama this week, so definitely a lot to break down. Let's start with the big guy. Let's start with Caleb Williams and USC. He put on an absolute show for pretty much every NFL scout and coach you could possibly think of. Obviously, the Bears were out in force. There was Matt Eberflus, the head coach, was in attendance, as is Ryan Poles, the GM. They were both in Southern California for his workout. Also, Keenan Allen, the new addition to the Bears from the Chargers, was down there watching possibly his future quarterback go through workouts. He had some absolutely beautiful deep balls that were just insane to watch. He's as special as they all say. The dude is really remarkable. He's built very, very nicely. Came in a little bit, I think, shorter than he was at the combine, which is interesting. But at the end of the day, he's remarkably talented. If you've been watching college football, you know that. There are some worries, obviously, with some of his interviews, some of the ways that he's gone about business throughout this process, including not working out at the combine. But at the end of the day, I think that's all kind of a smokescreen. Not necessarily that there aren't some validity to those claims, but at the end of the day, I think this is a kid with a very good head on his shoulders. I think it's a kid that really does love football and wants to be the best version of himself. And I think for that reason, the Bears are not going to hesitate. I think you can pretty much pen him into the number one overall, barring any crazy change of circumstances. But at the end of the day, this kid is special in every sense of the word. I don't necessarily know if he's going to burst onto the scene and be a Patrick Mahomes type guy like everyone's trying to make him out to be. But at the end of the day, if you're the Bears and you're not picking this guy number one overall, I think there's definitely some people in Chicago that will have some questions, and I think fairly will have some questions. But let's jump over to Austin, Texas, where a ton of guys were working out for the first time in what feels like over a decade. The Texas Pro Day was really the place to be. On, I believe, Wednesday was when it all took place, and Mike McDaniel, the head coach of the Miami Dolphins, was there. Obviously wanted to see Xavier Worthy after that crazy 40 time that he put up. Someone that he could definitely do plenty with. No two ways about that. And then you had Zach Taylor, the Bengals head coach, and Shane Steichen, the Colts head coach. We're all in attendance. All have very different needs. Definitely some pass-catching needs across all of those teams. The Dolphins a little bit different with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, but Mike McDaniel is no stranger to having plenty of wide receivers to throw the ball to, so I don't think he would hesitate to get another one in the fray. But Xavier Worthy and Adonai Mitchell were incredible throughout the day. They had the very smooth workouts. They were exactly the way that you wanted them to be if you are someone that is looking to draft a wide receiver late in the first round. I feel like both of these guys have elevated themselves from likely second round guys to possibly late first round. I think Worthy might end up falling into the second, but at the end of the day, if there are a ton of wide receivers off the board, I think a lot of people think the Chiefs are going to go wide receiver at 32. They very well could go Xavier Worthy's way. I'm sure Patrick Mahomes would love to just toss a ball out there and have him run under it. So I think it's very possible both these guys go in the first round, and both these guys have different traits, but they both can be huge contributors very, very quickly. So very excited to see what they can do. and had great pro days to kind of continue on their great process throughout this testing period. And then Byron Murphy is probably the biggest prospect in the entire group of Texas. Likely is improving his case for a top 15 pick. He is someone that is absolutely incredible, went through workouts and had a ton of scouts going crazy. There were a ton of different reports of them talking about just how quick he is off the rip for the size that he is. So I think he's someone that, if it's not a top 15 pick, it's likely a top 20 pick. He can go really anywhere from, I think, pick even 9 to the Bears, I think, is a possibility, although I think they will go receiver there. But he could go all the way down to 20. So obviously a big variation there, but he is definitely a first-round guy. Feels like he's stamped his claim on that. And then T'Vondre Sweat weighed in at 367, which was the big question mark for him. Obviously, his weight has been a big topic of conversation. He obviously is carrying a lot of it. I think the second biggest guy that came through the combine in history. So obviously a larger dude, no two ways about that. You will have to, exercise with caution when you talk about how many snaps you want him to play, that type of thing. But at the end of the day, he's been carrying it very well during his time at Texas and has been 360 for quite some time now. So I don't think he's too worried about that. But one of the biggest talking points here was a guy that you can't even draft the next month. Quinn Ewers was the guy throwing passes at the Pro Day, and I'm sure there were a lot of guys there to watch him. He is someone that is getting a lot of praise for the next draft class. There's guys like Quinn Ewers is among the group of Carson Beck, Shadur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, a ton of really good quarterbacks coming out of this next group, and Quinn Ewers has as much acclaim as anyone to jump into that number 1 overall spot, depending on what the year looks like for him next year. And I think he had a great day. It seems most of the balls were very much on target. There was one that was a little bit in front of Adonai Mitchell, but he made an incredible play like he does so often. So I think he gave scouts a look, right? And I think that's what scouts are looking for right now is when you get to see a junior quarterback, or when you get to see a junior at all work through pro days, but usually quarterbacks throwing passes, you get to see what they need to work on. You get to see where the deficits are, and I'm sure there were a couple of things that scouts were a little bit worried about with Quinn Ewers maybe coming out of that workout, and then you get to see him in a year from now at Combine, at pro days, throughout the next season, and you get to see if those things are fixed, because that's a huge part of drafting a quarterback, right? Is he coachable? Does he know where his deficits are? And is he willing to work on them? So Quinn Ewers getting to be in front of those eyes as early as possible, I think is huge for him. I think when he gets in front of them a year from now, he'll look even sharper, and then those guys will be even more excited to take him. So I think it's always great when a younger quarterback gets his chance to show NFL scouts a little bit early what he's got in the tank, but he's definitely someone that, as of right now, has all the potential in the world, does need to take a pretty substantial, I think, step forward to be that top guy in the draft class, but the talent is there. The arm talent is absolutely there. The question is, can he work on some of the different little deficits, the deep balls, the things like that, that he needs to, and he's on his way right now. So definitely someone that they were watching fairly closely, even though they can't draft him next month. And then Ohio State, the major news was Marvin Harrison Jr. did not work out again. Obviously, not what you wanted. You wanted to see this guy go through workouts because he is so remarkable. But at the end of the day, he's played a lot of games. He's played a lot of football games. There is a lot of tape out there, and it is remarkable. If you've watched any of it, you know just how incredible this kid is, and I don't think this is going to hurt him one bit. I know he's talking to these teams and explaining these decisions, and as long as they like his explanation, doesn't really matter what the rest of us think. So he is an absolute beast. Teams will absolutely love him from the tape as long as he has good interviews and doesn't, do anything crazy from here to draft day. He's the number 1 wide receiver. He's likely going right after all the quarterbacks in 1, 2, 3, and maybe the 4 position. There's even more talk about J.J. McCarthy, which we'll get to here at the end of this segment. But Marvin Harrison Jr. is the best wide receiver in this draft. I don't really need him to work out in an empty room for me to know that, so I don't think these teams need that either. I think it's obviously not ideal, but at the end of the day, it's his decision to make, so more power to him. And then in Tuscaloosa, it seems like the Dallas Cowboys were the main group, the team that was there a ton on their pro day, and Kool-Aid McKinstry put on an absolute show for him. It seems like he was the story coming out of the day. He ran a 4.47 with a Jones fracture in his foot, which is just ridiculous. He also jumped a 34 and a half inches on a vertical leap and 10 and 1 inch in the broad jump. So the dude's an athlete. There's no two ways about that. His ball skills are incredible. Obviously, isn't able to go through a ton of on-field drills right now with the Jones fracture, but was able to do what he was able to do and did a great job in those things, was great during the media availability. So he's someone that's kind of working his way up the draft boards in a cornerback class that's a little bit all over the place. It feels like no one has a surefire number one. Quinyon Mitchell has kind of taken that spot a little bit, but I'm sure there's different rankings all across the league. And then Terrion Arnold, his running mate from a year ago, is another guy that had a good day. He did mainly a lot of media and things like that, but if you talk to this kid or you listen to this kid talk, he's very easy to really like. He's someone that has a great head on his shoulders, obviously loves football, and ever since he's been in Alabama, coaches have only raved about him. So he's someone I'm very excited to see. I think whoever drafts him is going to absolutely love this kid. And Dallas Turner didn't have necessarily anything crazy happen on today, but it seems like he is going to be the top defensive player off the board. I keep seeing him mock drafted to my Atlanta Falcons. So uber athlete, we know that he's just insane all over the place. There are some minor worries, I think, within his game tape, but at the end of the day, when you're that freak of an athlete, coaches will, talk themselves into, we can figure that out. When you're that freak of an athlete, they don't necessarily worry if you have a couple of deficits that they need to fix. So Dallas Turner is someone that is rapidly rising up the boards and could be the number 8 pick, it looks like. And then Will Reichard, the kicker from that team that had just an incredible college career. He had a 57-yarder in front of scouts, hit basically everything. The only time he missed kicks was because he hit the top of the indoor facility. So I don't think that's a problem that you're going to really have if you're an NFL team. I wonder if they're worried about it getting caught by the wind, but that's literally the only argument I could think to take away from how crazy that is. But pro days are awesome. They only show us so much, obviously, but it's great to see these guys get in the workouts for the last time at their schools and then right off into the sunset, as it were. So Caleb Williams will be the first name you hear on draft day. I feel very confident about that. This could be old takes exposed, I don't know, but at the end of the day, I feel very good about Caleb Williams being the number one guy. And then we got some more pro days coming up. J.J. McCarthy and Michigan have theirs coming up very soon. LSU's is also coming up, so some big names that will be working out there. Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas, chief among them, but Mason Smith, another one that's huge. So we will definitely keep you updated with all of the pro day news, but we are going to take our final break here, and when we come back, we're going to talk the SEC and a little schedule release they did for 2025. So stick with us, and we will be right back.